Good morning. Welcome back to Level Up 2021. It's a Derry Strabane Enterprise Week event in partnership with Startacus. We've been running this for the last 3 months to build it up, to get it all ready to go. We've got some fantastic sponsors. We've got some fantastic speakers on board. We're exploring how people, both locally and internationally, can create opportunity, economic growth, and ideas and real change. And some of that's happened during the pandemic as well, which is fantastic news. So yeah, thanks to all the sponsors, the council, of course, Allstate NI, Northwest Regional College, UU, Raise, Real Time, and Esri. There's 6 themes over the 2 days. If you missed yesterday, you can catch up on it soon. We also have it on Facebook Live. But the key themes are smart places in rural innovation, future of retail on the high street, entrepreneurship and innovation. We had a great day yesterday chatting over all the themes. Today, we're talking health and wellness, social change, and inclusion and diversity. So I can't wait to get started. This is all about giving you guys some inspiration wherever you are in the world listening in, for ideas and things that you can do post-pandemic and ways that you can change your business models. So I'm hoping that you have a great day today. Just first up in the studio, we're going to chat with Jade. Jade has been an Impacting Founders member based in Derry, which is a female founder program we've been running. Jade, lovely to have you with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, cool. And it's great to, so forgive my accent, like obviously you know me now, and obviously I've lived in Derry for about 16 years. Obviously I love the city, and obviously I love what's happened obviously over the last few years in terms of the development of business and companies coming in. There's been some changes, but how disruptive has the pandemic been for you? And tell us a little bit more about your own business as well.
Yes, so I'm a nutritional therapist and my business is Restore Nutrition. My main passion and drive with Restore has always been the link between food and mood and how nutrition affects mental health because of my own personal experience with gut issues and stress. So, that's why I went down that line of, really delving into that area of research, which is, getting really, it's being delved into a lot recently. So yeah, obviously with the pandemic, everything has had to switch online for me, which I'm lucky that I can still provide the same level of service to my clients, to the businesses that I support, to the communities that I support with my services. So I'm really lucky it's not just hands-on, but obviously, yeah, technology has been a lifesaver in the current climate.
100%. And how receptive have companies been to making that change, obviously dealing with say mental health, well-being, but online? Has that been something people have been feeling quite comfortable to do?
I think at the start it was a bit of a, kind of everybody was dipping their toe in the Zoom, the Zoom kind of way of going, and yeah, everybody's really embraced it. And I think, especially in the times when we were in full on lockdown, people needed that human interaction, that, just seeing a friendly face and speaking to somebody. But it has been working really well, and I've been able to evolve and grow my online programs and really concentrate on research and what is actually helping people with their mood, with their physical health, their well-being in relation to their diet, their lifestyle, and using an all-round holistic approach. So that's always the way I go. It's treating a person and not a condition, and looking at the whole lifestyle. Absolutely. And that's what you're implementing in this session today, which is amazing.
Yeah, totally. After obviously yourself, we're going to be having a chat with 4 health tech and fitness founders, obviously looking at how they've changed and pivoted their business over the last 12 months. And to be honest, some of them were online anyway. So it's just meant that they've grown quicker because obviously more people have been receptive to that change. Do you think obviously coming out of pandemic, employers are going to have to start thinking a little bit more carefully about how they look after their staff, and what might be the implications of doing that? What are some of the benefits perhaps of obviously something like what you do as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I have seen a lot more employers trying to, be preventative. That's what we want to do with mental health well-being, is not react whenever, things are really bad. It's preventing them happening. And I think employers are seeing that. And realistically, if you're an employer, if your employee doesn't have their health, that's not going to greatly impact your business wealth. Like, you need to look after your employees who are going to look after your business. And if somebody's turning up to work and they can't physically look after themselves, then how are they going to be able to give your business 100%? So I think
Yeah.
employers are seeing that. And realistically, COVID has been horrible. It's affected, a lot of people. But, there's another pandemic that's going on, and it is mental health. I just did a poll on Instagram yesterday, inquiring about how many people had COVID and how many people who were affected by mental health issues within the pandemic, and more people were affected by mental health issues than what were affected by COVID. So it's something that we really need to be mindful of and be preventative of going forward. So it is so important.
It's a really great point, Jade. And I think we end on that note, just obviously thinking about the next 12 months, how we can better support each other and society in that sense as well, in terms of mental health, because the implications of the last 12 months haven't just been, like you said, COVID. It's a knock-on effect in all different ways, isn't it? So Jade, thank you ever so much for joining us today. You've got to go and do a workshop online as well. So it's just fantastic. So sit there for 1 second and then I'll say thank you very much. So guys, fantastic to have Jade with us today. She's been part of Impacting Founders, which was a female founder program we ran with Ulster Bank and Young Enterprise. It's so important that you help in terms of joining the dots and supporting obviously those that need some kind of stepping stones to develop their businesses, and especially during the pandemic as well. But what I've been really amazed by is the level of professionalism and ability that everybody on that program has. So I'm really excited to see what comes, obviously not just from Jade's business, but all of the businesses that we've been able to support there. And thank you to Ulster Bank, obviously, for putting the cash in as well. That's what we need corporates to do, is come back and support obviously early stage businesses as well. So first up is a panel which is featuring Alex Urita, Head of Sport Tech Hub at London Sport, alongside a stellar cast of fit tech and wellness founders. So it links in obviously to Jade. So we've got Hannah Beecham from Red Together, Sheeti from Breathe Happy, Melinda from Baby to Body, and Katie from Beam. So guys, listen into this, and obviously we'll join you back here soon. Lovely for you all to be here today. Thank you very much. Alex should be jumping on as well and joining us. So obviously we'll get Alex to introduce himself when he turns up as well. Hannah, could I just start by you introducing yourself and what you do at Red as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Hannah Beecham, the founder of Red January. It's a nationwide movement that's empowering people to move for their mental health. In essence, is getting them to kind of beat the winter blues at a time of year where we know it's a particularly testing time. So that's it in a nutshell.
Brilliant, excellent. Melinda, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. I'm excited to be here. My name is Melinda Nicky, and I'm CEO and founder of Baby to Body. And Baby to Body is a platform, and we look after women during their reproductive years. So conception, pregnancy, and postpartum. And we do fitness, nutrition, and mental health. And we make it accessible and personal. So everybody gets a personalized program based on exactly where they are in their lives. We have 1.5 million women on our platform. We're in 125 countries. We're a 4-year-old company, and we're based in London. And we also have an office in New York as well.
Love it. Amazing. So 125 countries, and how many million? 1.5 million users?
Yeah, just over 1.5 million. So we get about 4,000 to 5,000 a day. So it's kind of like a little bit of a moving target. So in a good way.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. We will definitely come back to some of the conversations, obviously, that you've mentioned there as well. Katie from Beam, if you could just obviously, well, we know you're called Katie now, but if you could say what you're up to as well.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Katie Bell. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Beam, and we are an online exercise education and wellness platform designed for the bespoke needs of somebody with a health condition. So we offer on-demand and live classes that are either run by a physiotherapist or they're run by somebody and led by somebody that has experience with a health condition themselves. So we have a very a deep need, somebody that has a deep understanding of the need of the person that they're teaching the class with.
Perfect, excellent. And finally, but not least, and forgive me for the pronunciation on this as well, Sheeti?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Alistair. Lovely hearing you all, ladies. So I'm Sheeti, founder and CEO of Breathe Happy. We were born with a mission to provide hyper-personalized well-being solutions to all in their living room without the need to buy 1,000-pound Peloton bikes. So currently we are offering live personal classes with the top teachers from the foothills of Himalayas. And in parallel, we are developing AI tools to then supplement these teachers to provide personalized feedback, both in live and outside the live classes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's start with that then, because that sounds like a natural place to start. You mentioned just before you went live that you're working, or you're just about to do some work with Ignite in Northern Ireland. So is that the type of thing that maybe even 2-3 years ago, thinking about before the pandemic even, that an accelerator program would have even considered? Is the mental health of the founders becoming more important, and their wellness and kind of general happiness, or obviously while they're running a business, more important now, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Alistair. So just to quote you some quotes from pre-pandemic era, when we were bouncing off the concepts and hadn't even before we started work, we're only a year old. The reactions were like, Skype, yoga, how's that going to work? And we had all the wireframes and concepts and demos, but we were, I would say now with the hindsight, too naive to think that we could change consumer behaviors. There are two things that are very, very difficult for startups to change. One is infrastructure, and second is consumer behavior. By infrastructure, I mean the speeds of internet. So with Starlinks going up in the sky and Elon Musk doing us all a favor, internet's going to 10x the speed. LiDARs, which are the depth sensing cameras coming in our iPhones, the fundamental nature of the reality that we live in will change in the next 2, 3, 5 years. That by just startups alone is very difficult to change at scale. And the second thing is consumer behavior, to do these classes online, to realize the importance of body and mind for their health. That is changing thanks to the need that everybody has felt over the last year. So for sure, we've seen that movement both within our customer base and outside.
Absolutely. And all of us being at home and obviously having to use technology to communicate on whatever level that we so wish, it's certainly, in terms of obviously consumer behavior, amplified obviously the need for technology probably tenfold compared to pre-pandemic. So Katie, obviously, how did you find that, obviously, to compared to like 13, 14 months ago? Are the ways that you're operating your business model, has that changed much compared to 14 months ago? I might be asking the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, our business model hasn't changed very much. We've just needed to accelerate to serve the need of a much wider audience that it's just obviously starkly needed our services during this time. We're already a remote business. So my co-founder's in Australia, I'm based in New York. We have a team in London, but we were mainly a remote team anyway. So that transition was a lot easier for us than it was for quite a lot of other businesses. So in that respect, not a lot of change, but we did see, the need to launch much quicker. We did see the NHS respond much quicker than in previous years to be able to help and knock down those barriers of red tape of working with startups. We definitely saw that, and all credit to the NHS for that. Yeah. We just our speed to launch health conditions. We launched kidney disease very quickly into the pandemic, and then launched prostate cancer later in the year. So speed, but ultimately not a lot of change to business model.
Amazing. Hannah, I'm going to then ask you, obviously, from the movement, it's a New Year's kind of commitment, is it? Obviously with Red. So how obviously do you do that all year round? Obviously, how do you continue to engage with your user all year round? And I suppose during lockdown, where we were kind of confined to maybe an hour's exercise a day, how did you kind of move your movement on, so to speak?
Yeah, so we founded Red together a couple of years ago, and that for us is our all year round movement. The idea being that come February 1st, we obviously don't say, oh, we'll see you next year, good luck for the rest of the year. So we want to be there on that journey with people, keeping that conversation going, and we work with various partners throughout the year to, in essence, provide that Red community with fitness inspiration and advice. It's been quite a journey this past year, obviously for everyone involved, but that Red community, the most real kind of the founding thing that we've seen is that actually people have come together in purpose. So we've seen people kind of set natural goals in terms of habits that they want to form through their physical activity. And they've invited other people to join them on that journey. So instead of feeling kind of isolated in your own goals, They've shared what they're doing with other members of the Red community and invited them to join them virtually. So it's been incredible to see people around the country in the same vein as they did with Red January, but come together with the goal of supporting themselves. So that's been the common theme for us throughout the year. And it's been amazing to see how creative people have been with their workouts as well. We've seen people with like cans of beans doing workouts in their lounge and putting their kids on their backs and walking, and it's just been amazing to see people in essence going back to basics with their activities, and knowing that they aren't alone in doing that. So it's been quite an experience, but it's been amazing to see people's journeys throughout the past year as well.
And before I ask Melinda, obviously a follow-up to that, and hello Alex as well, obviously there is Alex in the bottom right hand corner. We'll get you to introduce yourself in a second, Alex, and what I'd like you to do, just to think about how you connect to all of these people. So if you could just say, obviously, what is your connection to the 5 female founders that we have with us today? Hannah, I just wanted to ask you a follow-up to that, which is, are we more open about our own mental health now because of the last 12 months? And that can only be a positive thing, but has digital helped in that process in a way?
It really has, and we've seen a massive shift just with regards to, as you're describing there, the openness in people's conversation. To date, we've gone back through our kind of social analytics for the past 3 years, and in short, a lot of people share, okay, day X of Red January or day X of Red Together, but actually now people are sharing the way it makes them feel, and they're very openly sharing the connection between physical activity and mental health. And we found, certainly from our kind of the research that we've done with the University of Oxford, that as soon as people start to experience that connection for themselves, they're going to be more inclined to keep it going. So it's been a really encouraging step forward to see people wanting to share the connection that they're having with physical activity and the impact that it's having on their well-being, their self-esteem, all of those elements that feed into them being able to manage day to day the experience that we're all going through. So we've definitely seen a shift, a real positive shift in that conversation, and people knowing that actually we're all in this together. And it's great to see people kind of openly kind of inviting other people's experiences as well.
Absolutely. And I should probably just do a shout out to Gaz, who's from Arc Fitness, who is based in Derry. Gaz has a platform which it's very much a physical platform, but he's obviously using physical exercise and gym workouts to help those that are recovering or not, perhaps, obviously, from alcohol addiction. And he's just picked up, I think it was a grant from the big lottery for about 100K plus, which is brilliant because it means that he can now go full time, amplify his message, and he's also going to start doing a lot more digital stuff as well. So there's a lot of platforms obviously there that are helping obviously around mental health and support. And Melinda, I think obviously with your business, it's an holistic platform really, isn't it, to support someone at whatever point of the journey they're on, obviously in terms of their motherhood. Have you found obviously digital has helped over the last 12 months in terms of connecting people that I'm assuming must have been quite alienated otherwise?
Yeah, I think, well, in terms of being a digital company, we're digital first, obviously. So we have that platform, and we have a very comprehensive app as well with a lot of features. And essentially what you can get on the app is a program and specific sort of like tailored to your stage, exactly your stage. So it kind of like emulates having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and a mental health coach. I'm actually a psychologist, a sports and exercise psychologist. So everything that we have created has been created around changing people's behavior for good. So letting them understand what their triggers are, what drives them, what motivates them, and also encouraging them and nudging them into healthier behaviors and healthier habits. So we take them on a journey right from conception through their pregnancy into the first 3 years of motherhood, and create that space for them to get all of the information and motivation and inspiration that they need, as well as the program. So not only do we tell them sort of here's your workout, but also we inspire them and motivate them by linking that back to the benefits, and the benefits of their mental health journey, the benefits of nourishing their body properly, and also on their fitness journey as well. And then also touching base with what's going on with their babies. So what we found at the beginning of lockdown is that a lot of women's appointments were cancelled in the hospitals, and they were literally left to fend for themselves without any access to medical practitioners. So, you know, our platform was there ready and waiting. And then what we did is, I mean, we have a huge amount of content that is all science-backed and evidence-based from, you know, all of the different countries that we serve. And we were able to access that specifically for different areas. So we had a huge amount of people coming onto, women and men actually coming onto the platform, seeking more advice and guidance around their pregnancies, their conception journey, if they just had a baby. And there were so many unknowns, and it was such a scary time for all of these women that it was incredible to have this platform ready. And, you know, the need was just beyond what we could ever have imagined in our wildest dreams. But thankfully, everything was in, you know, in a good place. And yeah, our usage just went through the roof.
So
which is great, and it's continued as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Is obviously, I'm assuming obviously there was a spike in users, and that probably was quite similar for quite a few of you on the panel today. In terms of obviously the point at which you got your end user, did that change quite a lot? And were you offering like accessibility that I'm assuming wouldn't have been able to get otherwise then? And were there some countries that you saw that spike massively increase, obviously compared to other countries where you could see there was more of a different approach to the pandemic response?
Yeah, there was definitely a pattern, and it was directly linked to lockdown. So, and also the number of cases in each country. So we could actually track. I mean, at the time we couldn't, because, you know, in retrospect, it's much easier to track one thing against the other. But we also had, you know, up-to-date information and guidance for these women. So there was not a lot of information around pregnancy. You know, if you get COVID when you're pregnant, if you're having IVF treatment, if you should stop or not. So everybody was so concerned, and there was this sort of gap of information that was coming out of the authorities in every single country, and versus what was actually getting to women and what women were finding out. So we were plugging that gap, and we had access to the latest guidance and information, and we were just beaming that out to our users. So I was on FaceTime doing webinars. We were doing Instagram lives every single day. I was doing like 3 or 4 a day, so that we could get to all of the women in different countries. So if it meant, you know, we had a huge spike in requests from India actually, and then also the US, where the majority of our users are, and then all through Europe as well. So that was really interesting. As the waves started hitting each country, we could tell where the needs were coming from. So yeah. It was a real privilege to be able to plug that gap. And, you know, obviously that was all free, and we were just delighted to be able to help these women and offer some kind of support and guidance, and just reassurance as well, because I think they were, you know, most people were just left on their own to kind of figure things out. And if you go to the internet and you type in COVID symptoms, pregnancy, or you know, it's pretty scary, because nobody knew what was the real science. So
yeah, totally.
Sometimes it was just a matter of reassuring them to, like, you know, stay home, keep safe, try and calm them down, giving them meditation and mindfulness techniques, encouraging, you know, healthy eating, and then, you know, gentle exercise, which we do anyway. And it was, I agree, it was that back to basics kind of scenario, but actually it was look internally, don't worry about it, you know, and just kind of look after yourself. So that was the main message.
Perfect. Alex, I'd love you just to introduce yourself very quickly, and then just without obviously mentioning everybody individually, how you connect to all of these 5 founders as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't count this morning.
Yeah,
too much drink.
I didn't want to say anything. I would love to comment on the backgrounds. Then you find that when you come on, still a year on, you go on like virtual kind of online calls, and you just kind of checking into people's sort of like background. Alistair, I think you're ranking, you and I are ranking bottom of the pile for sure. Yeah, so I'm Alex Rita. So I head up Sportec Hub. Sportec Hub is powered by London Sport. London Sport is a not-for-profit tasked with driving London's vision to be the most physically active city in the world. We are primarily a business-to-business organization that work with key stakeholders from education, disability, workforce, physical activity for health, local government, central government, national governing bodies, sport, and so on. So really kind of, I suppose, we are in there to make the whole thing work better and connect stakeholders together to drive the implementation of projects, initiative, or disseminating funding. And I came in back in 2017 to basically with the task of setting up Sportec Hub. And the short story of that is that we saw that loads of industries were benefiting from the growth of digital advancements in technology. And basically, if you summarize it at a high level way, every industry was making it really easy for consumers to put their time, effort, attention, money into those industries. And we just believed that the physical activity sports sector wasn't really benefiting from that. So we set up Sportec Hub to address a gap back then in terms of bringing what was at first an accelerator program that were trying to support innovators and then connect them to the physical activity and sports sector. And the primary focus was around really then contributing to London's vision to be the most physically active city. So overall, Sportec Hub is there to accelerate the use of technology to help more people become active. And we started initially by helping innovators to launch, grow, scale tech products that can get more people active. And actually over the last 12 months, we have taken making an effort in trying to support the seekers of technology as much as. So actually, how do we help a NHS trust, a governing body of sport, a housing association, a community grassroots organization to understand what is out there, but also to connect them with great innovators that have already got a product that can be helping them and helping their people, their members, their communities to be more active. Perfect. So the connection, I suppose, is that we support innovators initially through our accelerator type program, but actually over the last 12 months or so, we've been trying to grow more of our community from the point of view that actually we really want digital to drive behaviors, physical activity behaviors and participation levels. Then, we want to actually have all great products and all great founders in our community that we can connect to the sector as and when it's needed.
Awesome. So I'm going to then take that back to Katie, and obviously Katie and Melinda touched on it slightly as well. And obviously now Alex has mentioned obviously working with, the local health bodies, organizations, government. Do you think when you think about your platform and perhaps other platforms obviously supporting those in fitness, mental health, wellness, do you think you did the job of what the government should have been doing in terms of providing that accessibility to information support? And the lead on to that is, why was it easier for you than it was perhaps governments to do that? It's a big question.
It is a big question. I mean, we benefited from Innovate UK, an Innovate UK grant during this year. I would say that we have worked together with the government in terms of funding from the government, and not only from Innovate UK, the money that was given in the grant form, but in additional support that they did supply us. So as a company, I think that they saw companies like us and tech startups that are working hard on the ground as a way, it's a very easy, not easy, but a way to help as many people as possible during this time. So I think that they did do efforts to try and reach people through startups like us. But I would say we worked collaboratively with Innovate UK as well as NHS trusts to supply this. I don't think we replaced it by any means. They've got bigger fish to fry, but bigger, a much wider conduit than we do. And I think that they did well to focus their, focus efforts on trying to have people on the ground doing the work and funding that. I was very impressed with the funding that they provided.
It's a very good, to be honest, it's a very good answer. And actually, the point is, we didn't know this was coming. So the fact that you all have platforms that could in some way support the bigger picture during the last 4 months the last 12, 13 months is probably the best thing that could have happened for everybody, because without your technology, where would we all be now? And I think that's the same across all sectors, whether it's education, fitness, well-being, banking, finance. It all can be that we've had to slightly adapt how we deal with obviously the reality that we're in. My question, obviously, that leads on to that then is, Shitty, just asking, obviously, the follow-up to that. Is this a long-term change, or do you think people are just going to go back to the norm as soon as, obviously, we find this magic vaccine that is solvable for everybody across the world? Do you think we're going to suddenly go back to gyms and retreats and places where we can do exercise, or is this to stay?
I think the whole world's eyes are set on that. So I believe that people are going to go back to gyms this year with a vengeance. However, the initial curiosity and excitement will give way to a more stable hybrid approach. And here is where we can take a cue from people like Bill Gates, who've said that remote work is going to be the norm. So maybe not 5 days, but 3 to 2 days, and how industry leaders are shaping that work culture. And if people are working remote, they will work out remote. That's an easy corollary to draw. The second cue we can take are from geographies like China and India. Well, India about 2 months ago, where gyms did open, people did go back. But then new variants will come up, new complications will come up, which will force people back into communities, into newer ways. And the third is something that Hannah and Katie also touched together, which is, and we have seen firsthand in our customer base, 3 things that have come up. A, the need for communities, digital communities, people wanting to share their goals, wanting to share feedback. And this has happened remotely in a way that even offline couldn't support at scale. For example, Strava. The second is the need to measure, quantify, whether that's running, by cycling, even yoga, number of sessions and stuff you've had to clock. And here's where the community is encouraging and supporting each other rather than just gamifying and pitting each other against. And the third is this whole holistic approach of body and mind, which you've touched earlier, where people have become more open, more comfortable talking about it, seeing how each other has faced difficulties. I mean, we have people in our sessions who support each other through their tears and shouts for help, to even sharing good news about their pregnancies, and it becomes a family. So
it's the point you made about community is something that I was going to, it naturally leads on to anyway. And Hannah, if I could ask you this question, in terms of the type of person that was accessing the type of, the work that you do, obviously, did that change? Was there a demographic shift? Were you finding them more young people, old people, or was it the same audience that you had before?
Really similar, actually. We saw a very, very slight shift in slightly older females joining us, but on the most part, it was really similar to years before. We tend to very naturally engage people of kind of low income, females between 36 to 55. As I said, there was a very slight shift, but on the most part, it was very much in line with what we've experienced before. We did notably actually experience an uplift in a lot of families getting involved with Red January. I think that was kind of a natural kind of byproduct of the fact that we're all at home together, and actually it's a really lovely thing for us all to be doing. So that was really lovely to see that happening. But no, it's definitely stayed kind of roughly the same. Which in my mind is brilliant, because as we know from all the work and all the research that's been done, certainly throughout the past year, that actually that demographic are kind of the hardest hit during this time. So it's been really lovely to know that work like ours is kind of helped support people during this time.
So this is an open question to any of the founders. Forgive me, you can tell I'm probably not the most fit or sporty, so my terminology might be a bit vague on this, but I want to ask what you think the gym will look like 18 months, 2 years from now. do you think there'll be more of a connection between the activity that we do at home, the exercise that we do with our families, and the connectivity between that and the physical exercise you do in the gym? What changes do you think the gym will look like in 18 months, 2 years time? Open forum for anyone to jump in.
So I used to work for Virgin Active for a long time in South Africa, and then worked for Sporta and Virgin Active in the UK. So I've got a long history of being in the fitness industry. I think it will remain and become more personalized. So I think what most people have kind of discovered is that A, working on their own isn't as scary as it was, and B, that there are numerous resources, including communities, as has been mentioned, plus the ability to use technology in AI, or things like Mirror, or that actually can help you to see what you're doing. I mean, we have found that our audience is reluctant to go back to the gym after we've surveyed them, because I think that they've now had a taste of that personalized programming, which is literally specific to their week of pregnancy, or their week of being a new mom, or their day of their cycle if they're trying to conceive. Everything is so hyper personalized and tailored, and I think it's difficult to replicate that at scale in a gym, right? So how do you do that in a class of 30 people? How is that instructor going to do that? So I think there will be this hybrid model. I think people are essentially social animals, and we want to be around other people, so there will be that driver. But before, a lot of our users would take their mobile phone into a gym and work out and do our programs, or putting their phone next to the mirror and do it like that, or use some of the equipment in the gym as well. So I think it will center around this kind of hybrid model of, sometimes you'll go in, you'll want to use some equipment, you want to be part of a class, but I think that kind of link to having something that's personalized is where I think this last year has kind of taken us and made us kind of leap forward, which I think is a really good thing, because ultimately a one size fits all is not necessarily the best thing for everybody, right? And then older adults as well, so women going through the menopause. I mean, we're launching a menopause product later this year, and women going through perimenopause and menopause are faced with a completely different issues and problems and challenges, with their bodies changing and their hormones all going crazy, as women are who they're pregnant. So we solved that problem first, and I think now we're going to be focused around this problem. I think more and more people are going to be seeking that personalization aspect.
Excellent, great answer. Anybody else want to jump in with their visions? Yep.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to say I completely agree with Melinda about the integration between the hybrid approach of offline gyms and online apps. So I do see gyms becoming a much more technology-based product, and integrations and open APIs, I think, will become the norm in gyms, so that you can actually plug in your phone, not plug in literally. That would be like taking us back 5 years, but connecting your phones to the equipment, because obviously I think some people did invest in equipment, for their home spaces, but we saw a lot of people still worried about the space that they needed to exercise in their homes. So obviously gyms eradicate that need, the equipment that people need. There will always be that need. But I just wanted to touch on another point, is that gyms were never like the only place that people wanted to go out and exercise. There's still a huge amount of vulnerable people in the world that would not, that they see a gym as not a place where they can be. They're too nervous to be there. There's a stigma around it. And I just wonder what gyms, or whether, gyms will be, will remain delivering for the demographics that they were before COVID, or whether this realization that the vulnerable people in this world could, they could become an inviting place for vulnerable people. Because what COVID did was an online exercise opening variety and accessibility to people, was to address people in that very vulnerable position who were not avoiding the gym anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to.
I think it's a great,
because we saw that.
It's a really great point that you made, in terms of obviously gyms being for one well, not one type of person, but a certain demographic of person. So obviously my lead to that, Hannah, and I'm going to come back to yourself, obviously with Red and January, like, do you think obviously exercise has become more acceptable for certain types of people that would have never assumed it was for them because that it's not in the confines of the gym?
Yeah, I think on the most part, what Red and other initiatives like Red try to do is reframe what exercise looks like. So we don't actually even use the word exercise in our campaign. We talk about movement and physical activity. So again, start to kind of reduce those barriers to what people perceive to be kind of getting active and moving your body. And I think that's been going on well beyond the pandemic, if I'm honest. Yeah. But the pandemic certainly, especially through the fact that obviously the government were very clear in terms of the one thing you can do out of all of this is move your bodies. We're allowing you that. And as I kind of touched upon earlier, it's very basic form. We've seen people very much getting back to basics with movement and actually recognizing that a walk constitutes as you moving your body and as you getting active. So it's actually been a really kind of liberating shift that we've certainly experienced from people going, I put so much pressure on myself to be doing this HIIT workout and to be going to the gym and making sure I was sweating. And actually, we're going back to the fact that, you know what, I left my car at home and I walked my kids to school, and that's great. I've got out there and I've moved my body and I've been active. So it's, we've certainly seen a kind of a shift in attitudes towards what physical activity can look like to other people. And my hope is that people kind of continue that, because it's just so much more practical and inclusive and accessible to go about our day-to-day life thinking about ways that we can incorporate more movement in a very back to basics way. And yes, of course, there's people in that community that cannot wait to kind of get back into the gyms. But again, on the most part, we've seen people really just enjoying this time to be able to fit in activity in a way that works for them as well. Yeah, excellent. Alex, obviously then leading on from that with this nice synergy back to obviously Sports Tech Hub. Well, two things. Yes, I definitely did more walking over the last 12 months because I got a dog, and it was just amazing because I didn't have to drive to work or drop the kids to school. All of a sudden I had this free window of an hour that I could go and do exercise in. It was like amazing. Still continuing that, and I don't have to pay any money as well to go to a gym, like obviously, which is different. So that was one observation from Hannah. And then the other observation is my parents, who all of a sudden had to start using technology that they'd never felt like they could use before. And now they use, and I've not seen my parents for over 12 months now, because we live in different countries. But we're together in some sense because of obviously this digital window that allows us to speak to each other. So my question is, are you finding different types of ideas that come into you now over the last 12 months, which are early stage fitness and sports tech or wellness ideas that you probably wouldn't have seen before the pandemic? And are you starting to see ideas coming forward to shape those that are perhaps 60 plus that have suddenly become really engaged with using digital technology? That's an open question, obviously, to Alex. You might not have an answer to it.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I suppose what COVID has done is accelerated the adoption of digital fitness broadly, right? More people were forced into, it's been mentioned by pretty much all panelists around the need that when that physical space that you used to go to be physically active, and take Katie's point, that I'm saying physical space because it could have been a community group that were meeting in a certain part of that community, and maybe it was a running group, and it needs that social element, which I think that would always stay there regardless of, and people will want to seek that, and their social development that comes with that too. But it forced the adoption. So for us, it was almost like brilliant. A lot of the work that we've been doing with the physical activity and sports sector broadly, it was a case of, this is it, we need to take this opportunity, embrace it, drive it forward. A bit of the kickback as such has been around the digital divide, which is a really, really good point to make and raise and consider, which is actually that ultimate reliance on digital for certain people that just don't have it. And it might be digital skills, or it might be more on data, or it might be more on access. It kind of creates a bit of friction point. I think then that becomes part of that government conversation. It's almost like, you know, ultimately becomes a little bit bigger than our own sector and our own ecosystem. It is absolutely definitely need to be acknowledged, need to be addressed, and we need to be part of that support mechanism or part of the solution. But it can't just be us that sort of go and address it by ourselves as such. So it's a really valid point. I suppose we have got and that aging population that will continue to become more digitally savvy. Doesn't mean we've got to kind of not worry about the current makeup of the population and only think about, well, in 10, 15 years time, it's going to be different. And I suppose the other point around new products, concept ideas, perhaps I have a slight bias to want to be in the shoes or put myself in the shoes of founders, and therefore I'll probably give our sector a little bit more of the challenges rather than the founders ourselves. I think we as a sector, the physical activity and sports sector, need to be better at presenting insight, presenting reports, research, and make it really digestible for a founder to be able to understand what are the actual pain points that need to be addressed. But yeah, absolutely, we're now starting to see from a kind of new innovation, new concepts, founders that are looking to bring physical activity and more of the environment sustainability kind of mixed together. So the more physically active you are, the more trees that are being planted in a part of the world that maybe needs it. So I think there is also growth of physical as part of other things that have maybe an intrinsic value to someone. And then therefore are contributing to other industries or to other conversations or other agendas.
Great stuff. The lead on to that then is obviously the more digital we have, the more that there is a movement to have less digital. So I'm wondering whether anyone has any answers to that. Obviously, how do you not control your consumer, but how do you help your consumer understand how much, and we're going to be finishing in 2 or 3 minutes, but if anyone needs to drop off, totally understand as well. So how do you try and shape your consumer or your customer or your community so they're not just on digital all the time, especially if that's the only solution we have at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to
Can
a little
I just,
bit of
quickly jump in here. Sorry, I have to drop off. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not a problem. It's me. It's my waffling. So Melinda, thank you ever so much for your time today.
Thanks so much. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Take
Cheers.
care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
So we started working with the UK government after pandemic, especially for the older adults who were recovering from COVID. Now here was the double-edged sword because it was digital. How do we deal with this in a sensitive way that is appropriate for their usage and their stage? And at the same time, anything in physical proximity was ruled out because of COVID. So we devised a solution which was completely appropriate for their usage, meaning clean user interface, different colors, bold, big headlines, minimal choice of option to really help them navigate that. The second part of that was a lot more personal interaction, both amongst each other and with a facilitator of the activity. I'm very, very pleased to say we are now 6 weeks into the program, middle way. There has been a 95% unprecedented approval ratings from these older adults, and the self-claimed positive impact has been to the tune of scale of 7 on a scale of 10, wow, which for our stages is huge. So I again, once going back to the points that I mentioned, it is about creating that personalized solution space in a community. So that sort of space is huge while designing the solution around their needs.
And Katie and Hannah, I'm going to then the follow up to that is that I asked a stupid question really, because more digital doesn't mean that you use more technology. It's just using digital to help take something offline and do it in real life. Is that fair?
Yes, it is fair. I wanted to set back to your last question because I think I had an interesting point around that as well. I think what we've always tried to do as a business, and I think what we've succeeded in very much during COVID, is increasing people's confidence to exercise. We've never wanted to be the only solution. We want people to go to gyms if that's where they want to be, and obviously during lockdown, not possible. But now potentially, but going outside and exercising. So, you know, there's always been a bit of availability to go for a run. That's never been stopped, not that I know of anyway. So I think digital can go a long way to increase people's confidence to go out and do exercise outside and offline, which we will always promote.
Excellent, great answer. And Hannah, obviously yours is very much of out and about physical thing as well, isn't it? So the digital brings your people together. It's not the result, it's not the answer, is it? It's just part of the process.
Exactly that. It's kind of the binding thing within the community itself. So we're, in essence, a social media community. So it exists very much online. And yeah, that conversation on the most part takes place online, but it's also kind of a conduit to people meeting up in person when you actually can. But similar to Katie, it's for us, we kind of signpost to other things that are out there that very much meet our approach around it being free, affordable, practical, realistic, all of those things that kind of meet what we do at the very heart. And there's so much choice out there. So we recognize that it could be quite overwhelming if we just kept kind of putting things that Red Community's way. So we're quite kind of selective in terms of things that we share. But equally, if I'm honest, a lot of it comes from the Red Community themselves. So they'll be like, oh, I actually really enjoyed this app. Maybe you could check this out. This is the experience that I had. So a lot of the time it comes from the community rather than us as a kind of as a brand. And we much prefer it that way because it just makes sure that it's kind of things are being shared that are accessible for everyone in our community, from a 6-year-old up to a 92-year-old. There's so many options out there. So it's amazing to see people taking that initiative to share what's working for them, just in case it works for other people too as well. It's all very organic and flexible, but we really like it that way.
And that's how a community should be built and grown as well, isn't it? And obviously that's the only way you can grow a community at scale, is that they start to be the community rather than you driving it yourself. So I'm going to guess, obviously I summarize all of this and say less barriers, not more, and that should be what the digital provides the user with, and the opportunity to make the most of what's around them rather than having to physically go and do something at a certain time every week, and that's the only thing you ever do. Talking of less barriers and also talking about other people that are doing great things, just before we go, I would love it if you could all basically give a shout out to someone else, someone that's done something great within fitness, well-being, mental well-being, perhaps obviously over the last 12 months. I literally want to limit it to 30 seconds. So the founder, what they're doing, has anyone got any suggestions who else we can follow and look up as well?
I can't do one person. I just think you need to shout out to all the individual instructors, physiotherapists out there that have turned their businesses online in such adverse conditions that it would be unfair. I've seen some phenomenal things, and I think it's the people that I would like to shout out to is those individuals that brought their community classes online, which I saw so much benefit for the people to continue that connection.
I don't know if we can follow that.
I know.
Sorry.
Whatever Kate said, I'm.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna struggle because so Sporting Hub has had an accelerator type program for 3 years. 33 founders have gone through that, so it's quite tricky to even pick one within that, right? But actually, then over the last 12 months or so, we've really wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, because of COVID, we really wanted to support organizations in the sector to identify tech products that they could be, creating partnerships with. And I think that was, previous questions as opposed to a summary. That was the answer, wasn't it? Like, tech is not the solution, but is an enabler or is part of the solution, and it should be a hybrid of, it should be adding value to those that are providing a physical service as much as, a way of adding extra value outside of that physical connection. So because of that, because of trying to really present solutions, then we've kind of now ended up somewhat building a relationship with about 100 founders from 16 different countries. Some that have been on the panel that are like new relationships, some that are more kind of longer term, has been there for a number of years. So trying to pick one is pretty tough because of that, but also I think because of there are many founders within that community that have accelerated new features into the product or brought new services on the market because maybe they were trying to help people to provide physical activity as a way of managing a long-term health condition, but that couldn't happen. So actually they've now accelerated a feature that enables that digital offer to be done, or it will just be, you can go on and really you could easily give a shout out to any founder and most of the founders, because one way or another they've all played a part by keeping their business alive, by keeping the offering alive, by making the offerings relevant to the new conditions, and ultimately still helping people to benefit from what comes from being physically active and what comes from being kind of embracing I suppose more physical activity into your daily lifestyle.
100%. Last point, GT as well, would you like to make a last point, or obviously has Alex summed it up enough?
Perfect summary both by Katie and Alex. Our heart especially goes out to all the individual yoga teachers. We've got about 150 with our family. Yes, totally, Katie, what you said. These are real heroes who are pivoting their businesses as we speak, and with our tools that hopefully help them facilitate their businesses and impact for their lives. So shout out to all of them.
Awesome. I think I can't beat that. So I'm just going to end on that note and just say thank you ever so much for all your time today.
My name is Connor and I am the owner of Brawn on Bishop Street. We are a specialty coffee bar and cocktail bar. We also do breakfast, lunch and now evenings once we get reopened again. I'm from Port Stewart myself, but I've always sort of been in and around Derry, and I just love the Derry people. I love how good a crack they are, and I just seen an opportunity where I felt I could really excel and really work with Derry people, just because they're my type of people, my type of banter. The support has been absolutely fantastic, and if you can keep it up during this lockdown and this hard time for our two businesses, it's so much appreciated. That small spend makes a big difference. Thank you.
Well, welcome back into the studio. You'll notice Fran's not with me today. So Fran was the co-host yesterday, so big shout out to Fran and all the support she offered during the last 24 hours. So I'm a bit like Richard without Judy today, so forgive me if the sofa looks a bit empty compared to yesterday. Right, next up, we've got another panel, and I just have to say the sports tech panel was fantastic. Thank you to all of those that took part in that. Alex also from Sports London to help in terms of organising that panel and getting all the panelists together. Not just in the UK, they're based as well. So it's just really awesome that they all joined us and chatted. So next up, we're going to be talking about, can tech offer fairer health and social care for all? And for that, we've pulled in a panel of Northern Irish health tech and wellness and mental health tech founders and those that are leading in the businesses as well. So I'm going to introduce you to Diva from Sunrise Analytics, Susan from Respiratory Analytics, Chris from Elemental Software, and Sinead from Informed Mind app. Chris obviously is not one of the founders, that's Leanne and Jennifer. Chris, you've joined us first, so perhaps you could just explain your role obviously within Elemental. Big shout out to Elemental, by the way, love them.
Hello everyone, and thanks for having me today. So I'm Chris English. I'm the head of implementation at Elemental Software here in Derry. We're a tech for good company. As you mentioned, Alistair, we're founded by Jennifer Neff and Leanne Moncosgill, two local ladies. It all started in 2013. They worked together on a project. They were both community and voluntary sector based at that time. and they shared a frustration around the barriers between community organisations working together and working together with the health and social care sector as well. So they thought technology might solve that problem. It might help bring these community organisations together and bring the patient or the person to the fore. They should be central in all this. And that's why Elemental was born. And since then, we've gone from strength to strength.
Happy days, Chris. Yeah, Elemental have been on some journey. I remember meeting Leanne in the old Norabic space, which was in the regional college. And she'd come in, and obviously Jennifer was still out in Dubai, I think it was at the time. And it's just been amazing to see their journey. Amazing to see every time I see a new advert for a new job that's being built, and obviously is going to come to Derry or elsewhere across the UK as well, to be honest, now as well. And it's just brilliant to track what they've done, but also celebrate that they're based in the city. And I love the fact that they've come from the community sector as well, and they've had an idea and they've had that passion to drive it through. So Chris, lovely for you to be here, and obviously shout out to Jennifer and Leanne as well. Susan, if you could just introduce yourself as well, that would be wonderful.
Great, thanks for having me, Al. I'm Susan Kelly, and I am CEO and co-founder of Respiratory Analytics. Before I say anything else, I have to say that Jennifer and Leanne have really helped me. So they're still, they're paying it back locally by helping local businesses develop at the moment. So yeah, we use sensors and a hyper-personalized data analytics tool to help people with respiratory conditions like asthma and COPD to self-manage, but also to give data to their healthcare professionals to help them manage. One of the key problems is health literacy in these conditions, and it's very much driven by health inequality also. So having that really granular insight, being able to see what you're doing wrong, taking your medications for yourself to manage, and then for your clinician also to be able to help you via the data analytics tool that we have, is really fundamental to helping people manage their own conditions. So we've had some money from the UK. We were founded in 2019. We're going pretty fast. We're not at market just yet. We're not at revenue just yet. But yeah, we're moving along quite quickly, and hoping to be in the market early next year.
Excellent. I love the fact that both the first two panelists have said fairness and obviously equality, and obviously bridging that gap in a sense, obviously between the customer or the patient and their specific needs. And I think that's really key to providing fairness to all. Diva, if you could just explain obviously your own business as well. And it's lovely to have you back with us. Diva joined us for the Science Festival panel on AI and bias. So we won't be talking about bias today, Diva, but it's great to have you with us again.
Thank you, Alistair. So yeah, hi, I'm Deva, and I am the co-founder of Summary Analytics. So we are a smart data analytics company for healthcare data. So we work mostly within pharma and biotech, and we use both AI and traditional analytics for conducting, data analytics within healthcare to help pharma to accelerate drug discovery and also to do better research.
Excellent. Did you do anything directly within the pandemic in terms of obviously that process and pharma?
Yeah, so in a certain way, and I always feel a bit because, the pandemic is obviously horrible, but for us, it was kind of a brilliant use case in a certain way because, everything we do within Sunray, within our platform Indra, it is remote. It was built, to make sure that people can actually access their data labs remotely and, work through, collaborate. You don't have to be in the same room. And this meant that with the pandemic, the pharma companies, they were starting to understand, oh, we need a solution that's actually going to let, our colleagues communicate with us and cooperate on the analytics without us, breaking the pandemic, the guidelines. And so I think it was kind of brilliant for us because it was just the right time for us in that way. But it also did mean that we had to, in certain other aspects, getting investments and things like that, there were things that we had to be more mindful of because pandemic also meant that we couldn't do face-to-face chats. So it was ups, and also there were certain things that we had to be mindful of.
100%. Obviously, the last panel we had on, I think obviously within the health and fitness space, for example, there's been quite a lot of digital adoption already, but in some parts of the health service, we're still quite behind. And obviously that leads us on to Sinead and obviously what you're doing with Informed Minds. Sinead, do you want to start by explaining obviously about yourself and what you're doing? And then we can chat more about that as well.
Of course. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sinead Welsh and I am an international child protection specialist. I lived and worked for the Australian government for 10 years in Melbourne. I worked very closely with Victoria Police around the sexual assault investigation and family violence investigation teams. I returned back to Northern Ireland. I'm a Tyrone lady and brought the trauma-informed practice, international experience here with the absolute vision to support and change and make change makers via our app. So that's basically how I started the movement with regard to Informed Minds app, which I have based on psychological and social work theoretical basis. And we've made the app for and with 16 plus the age group there.
Yeah, excellent. What has the pandemic amplified the need for what you're doing, or has the pandemic maybe even changed or challenged your perceptions of where your technology or your solution is needed within society / community? Sinead, I'll start with yourself on that to follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've been working on the research and report with regards to this app for 2 years. So Alistair, we already knew there was a significant concern by means of psychological well-being in Northern Ireland, nationally and internationally. Everyone knows that. So we had put the motion in place a long time ago. We're just very much working towards now the launch. But of course, the pandemic already then exacerbated what we already had existing by means of the concern around, and I mean well-being, and it doesn't have to be a statutory mental health diagnosis. It could be just our own thoughts and our unkind thoughts around self. So of course, then we were able to use the pandemic to gather our own research in the market, get in touch with our student ambassadors. Queen's have also conducted our research piece or their independent report to tell us what are the concerns for the young people now. And we know they are a technologically advanced generation. The app is their chosen channel of communication. So we wanted to be able to use tech for good. This is our idea, that if we can interject with the model that we've devised, which is peer support, peer mentorship, and professional friends in the app, we're going to make a change immediately, but more importantly, long-standing.
Great answer. It kind of leads me then on to probably, Sinead, the stage you're at is where, you know, Jennifer and Leanne were with Elemental maybe 5-6 years ago. And it's that kind of early stage pitching point where you've got to get into the right people and the right connections who really buy into what you're doing. Much like Chris, leading on to yourself with social prescribing, that's become certainly something more relevant and well known within the last 2 or 3 years. But within obviously the last 12 months with the pandemic, have you found that Elemental has had to try and provide a different service because of the pandemic, or an earlier intervention level, like Sinead mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have. We've had to adapt our organization and our technology through the pandemic. So I guess there's two threads there. The first one maybe I'll talk about is our organization. So through the pandemic, we brought in an extra 8 staff. I was one of those. Actually, I started in June last year. So my first 3 months with Elemental were working from home. And for those first 3 months, I hadn't actually met any of my co-workers. So it was completely online. So we, like many organizations, shifted to remote working and online working. Credit to Elemental, from day one, I felt part of the team and really inclusive. So that was fantastic. Second thread then is our technology and our customers and our partners. With a lot of premises being closed, a lot of community services being closed, or at least their offices were closed. Those staff members were all remote working. Because we have a cloud-based product, they were able to work from home. The challenge then, though, was that the patients or the clients, the general public, needed a way to access those services. So we created some technology and we embedded it on their website where the general public could refer themselves into the service. So they didn't need to visit the premises. The phone lines sometimes were unmanned and they couldn't get access the way they used to their GPs who could also refer in. So the self-referral process, as we called it, was something that we implemented early in COVID, and it's just gone from strength to strength. We've almost half of our customers now using a self-refer tool with our platform or planning to use it. So we've really opened up the ability for people to take their care into their own hands. And that's something that's been accelerated by COVID, but I think is going to last way beyond COVID. So that's a huge positive for us and for
you've ticked a box, which is one of my questions for later on in the panel, and I think we follow with that. I wait for days to try and get through to my doctors, and when you do get through, to try and get an appointment can sometimes take days. So there's a pain point there, which I think if we all said, I pretty much can guess it's the same for all of you on this panel, and I'm going to pretty much guess across obviously the UK, Ireland, further afield, it's a pretty similar process. Technology has adapted that need. Can you imagine, obviously, us going back, and Susan, I'll lead this question to yourself. Can you imagine us going back to pre-pandemic, or now post-pandemic, sorry, to the way things were before, where you had to actually physically see a doctor to speak about something that could have been done face-to-face, but over technology? Do you think your technology itself, obviously with what you're doing with respiratory, is amplified because of that technology and that barrier being removed? Or does it make any difference to you personally, Susan, with your business?
It's going to make a big difference for us, Alistair. I think long before the pandemic, it was recognised that the NHS in particular was lagging behind in terms of digital innovation. And if I focus just on asthma alone, Asthma UK have published a series of reports from 2016 onwards, Connected Health, Smart Asthma, the Great Asthma Divide, and they also produce a national report every year on asthma deaths. And one of the key things that they feature is poor access to asthma reviews and poor uptake of those reviews in the original system. Now, during pandemic, there's been a huge catalyzation, if that's the right word, of digital. And we've seen, for example, locally, my own GP's practice is using a digital platform, and some of the clinical advisors that we work with, some local GPs and clinicians in the hospital, are using remote methods for seeing people. That may be, doing reviews on the phone or by Zoom meetings as well. So that adoption, I think, has really been speeded up. What's missing, I think, certainly in asthma, is the data that's required. So being able to really clearly see, are patients taking their inhalers, and if they're taking them, are they taking them correctly? There's no quantitative way to do that at the moment. You're relying on patients reporting themselves, and quite often they don't realize that they're making errors. So those conversations who we're having at the moment have really grown. The interest has grown in being able to not just adopt those remote techniques for seeing patients, but also to then pull in the hyper-personalized data to really be able to get proper insights into what's going on. I think, interestingly, Asthma UK did a report several years ago in which they highlighted that I think it was 93% of patients were happy to have their data shared with their clinician if it would help manage their condition. And I think it was over 80%. It's 88% of patients said that they were happy to have their data shared if it would help improve remote monitoring and pathways to manage their condition. So I think that the pandemic has really brought that into the light and speeded it all up. There was a demand for it before. The system was creaking at the seams. We all know that waiting times, in hospitals are particularly bad in Northern Ireland compared to elsewhere. And there's a knock-on effect. If patients are managed in the community, they end up waiting for hospital referral. And these are patients who are extremely ill. We have one of the highest rates globally for asthma deaths in the UK. So yeah, I think we'll see some return to the previous methods, but I think GPs themselves have welcomed some of these techniques, and so have patients.
Great answer, Susan. I'm going to then flip that to Deva, and I'm going to ask you, Deva, just touching on the bias side of things here. Let's assume that some of the technology solutions that are within health tech are based on AI, machine learning tools. Is there a risk that instead of creating more fairness and accessibility for all, what we do is we create a system where the AI, perhaps using the code, etc., that's been used to create it creates a bias between some people and others. Are we at risk that perhaps we actually create more of a divide in that sense?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So the thing is, Chris, sorry, not Chris, Alistair. The thing is, what we need to realize is in terms of AI, at the minute, what we have is something called narrow AI. So, we don't have the Terminator level or, data from Star Trek level of AI. And that means that all that we're doing is we're actually playing with mathematics, so mathematical models, advanced mathematical models, essentially. And the way these are built, you need to put data into them in order to train these models. And that data is essentially the data about the world as it is, or the data about the world as it was in the past, not data of the world as it should be, or what we're working towards yet. So, and what we do know currently in healthcare is we already have a diagnostic bias when it comes to certain times in terms of race and gender. There's plenty of studies out there in journals that's been done about this that you can look into. So then if you are just taking that data and then putting it into, your algorithms, then yes, it's definitely going to create bias. So, and the thing is, with the thing about AI is we are at that stage. So AI now is everywhere. It's already in healthcare. It's already in everything that we do. It's just that it's become so prevalent that we don't quite necessarily think about it as AI. I mean, your smartphone is AI, probably your washing machine, if you have the high-tech washing machines or a high-tech fridge, that's going to have some level of AI. So it's everywhere. And what that does is it's now starting to have an effect on the decisions you're making, because you're letting these algorithms, optimize your decision-making process. So you are kind of, and at this stage, if we don't implement the right policies, if we don't govern these things, and if we just let it, do what it's doing as it is, then that is going to create effect. You are going to end up being the frog in the boiling pan, and suddenly, it's too late.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, definitely, if we just go at it as we are going right now, if we don't implement the proper policies, if we don't take care of it, yes, I mean, AI, you have to understand, AI is not a bad thing. We need it. It's there for a reason. It's actually really helpful. But with any technology, you need policies to govern it, and you need, people looking at what's going on, making sure that this is transparent. We understand to the maximum degree that we can, because, with neural networks, you don't exactly know what's going on inside, even if you are the person who's coding it. But you can build systems that actually helps you understand why they might be making that decision, and you can also watch it to make sure that when it's making a wrong decision, oh, okay, no, you shouldn't be doing this. This is what we need to be looking into.
Yeah.
So yeah, short answer, yes, the bias will have an effect. Long answer, well, there are solutions for that.
No, I mean, we had a good chat for 50 minutes on this, and we came up with some really great answers and conversations, but obviously that's for another time. I'm going to then take what you mentioned there over to Sinead, and Sinead, just asked you, how much are you considering the use of technology perhaps within your process of obviously supporting young people, and considering that you have to have, I'm assuming, some type of human validation in there, so that you're not just using technology to make assumptions?
Absolutely. Our app is a relational model. So basically what we've done is brought real professionals, real people, real stories in real time into the app. So it's actually very clinically governed. So all of the vlogs come through me. They're little bite-sized vlogs. This is what the audience want. They want real people. It's the most humanistic and relational way that I feel that we can use technology. So we cover lots of different topics, right from well-being right through to some really serious situations. So things like, alcohol, attitude, bullying, bulimia, your confidence, cocaine. We're looking at exams. We're looking at friendship, focus. We're looking at, and Diva, we have a section, actually, we're working really profusely now with regard to farmers and farming issues across the island of Ireland. So when I heard you talking about that, I was very, very keen to hear what you have to say today. So we want to look at the opportunity for real people being in the app. So that's the way we've developed it. So what our users will find is when they come in, if they have an interest and or a concern, say for alcohol, they'll come in, but what they will get is a human interaction. So the first person you'll see is a wonderful expert with regard to mental health and addictions called Anne Moyer. She talks in a selfie video kind of way, very real, but she is extremely informed and an expert in what she does. And she just gives her pearls of wisdom for 20 years experience about just advice, what you might like to hear, and some of the myths she breaks around mental health and addictions. And then you get some peer mentorship support. So we have real people in here. And that's the early intervention model that we go by. We want different personality styles. We want different learning styles, with the hope that your short vlog in our app could be the keys to unlock someone else's little prison while they're alone in their bedroom. So it could be a confidence issue, or it could be suicidal ideation, but we are actually using professionals, real stories. We're giving very much quality assurance and clinical governance, but we are using that information as a community to say, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'm going to talk about this in a safe place, and I'm going to get some really good advice from a wealth of people across the whole of Northern Ireland, and we're working in the Republic at the minute. That'll give me the message. I'm not different. I'm not on my own. And it's okay that I'm having these thoughts, and this is where I get the support, or I'm taking one of her tips. That was a great one. I'm going to implement that for me. And if they need more extra help, they can get that as well. So ours is more relational, Alistair. So that's kind of the concept and the platform that I've built.
Great. And I'll give you some validation here. I go and do some stuff for young enterprise, or I did before the pandemic in schools. And we do this thing called we call digital youth, where basically all the students come up with their own digital ideas, and they're based on 6 themes, one of which is health. And I can tell you every school I've gone into in Northern Ireland is focused, when the kids come up with ideas around health, it's all around those issues that you've mentioned. And the fact that they feel that there should be a technology solution that gives them that ability, perhaps without identifying who they are as well, to find out about certain issues. So I'm going to come back to Chris now, obviously with social prescribing, because really some of this is into the social prescribing space as well. I'm going to guess some people are more able to use technology than others. Young people, yes, can use technology. Those that are over, say, 65, they might have struggled pre-pandemic. How much has your demographic picked up technology as part of the process for what you do, or is it still very light in terms of the technology use? You're just the platform for that to happen.
So I think pre-pandemic, our technology sat in the background really. So the social workers, the link workers, the community workers used our technology to input data relating to the person and track their case through, and to process referrals on to other services and organizations. So it was really a kind of a business to business transaction, if you like. But since the pandemic, as I talked about earlier, we've opened up the self-refer technology within our platform, which is public facing. So there is a use case where that technology is needed, and that's great. But there are still, as you mentioned, a lot of people who don't have access to the internet. You know, they don't have a phone or a laptop and so on. So they would struggle with that. So what we find with a lot of our partners and the services we work with is that they still have the telephone line. So you can still call them to make a referral. We're linked in with GP software as well, so GPs can refer on their behalf. And also through the website, you can refer on behalf of someone else who doesn't have access to technology. So I think there's an onus on us and all technology providers who are pushing the digital agenda and being digital enablers to make sure that we don't leave those people behind. So we need to build solutions which help those who are online and improve and remove barriers and improve processes. But we also need to make sure that it isn't a barrier for those who don't. And that's key really. So with our solutions, we still enable link workers and community workers to input data on behalf of someone where they've received a phone call, for example, or an email or a walk-in. And that's key that we facilitate that.
Good call. And I'm just going to track back and say, just tell us what social prescribing is in like 2 sentences, because I don't want to make the assumption everyone knows what it is.
Okay. So I'll take a couple more than 2, but I'll be really quick. So Jennifer and Leanne, through their research, whenever they started out, found And I think it's well known that a third of visits to GPs are for non-medical reasons. So it could be loneliness, it could be other reasons which could be dealt with by an intervention with a community organisation. So social prescribing is about connecting people to services within their own communities, which can help their well-being and mental health, and give them a better outlook on life, and better tools to improve their life without medical.
Great stuff, great answer. Yeah, and it seems to be obviously that third alternative to, psychological perhaps, or medical in terms of tablets. You're providing them with community. Would that be fair? That's what you're giving them, is the opportunity to chat to other people and have that holistic approach.
Absolutely, yeah. Connecting communities.
Yeah.
Connecting people within their community.
Good stuff. Susan, I'm going to ask you this, and forgive me if this is a slightly more NI-wide question, but why do you think it is that we've got such a good health tech sector in Northern Ireland? I think that it seems that we've got quite a lot of academic, technical health solutions, and we also have obviously ones that are in the more kind of mental health and well-being space. So is there any reason why you think Northern Ireland is perhaps punching above its weight in that sense?
I gave this some thought, and certainly there are brilliant companies as Elemental, Axial 3D, Neurovalence. That's only to name a few. There are so many really emerging at the moment, and we're well behind them in terms of our development. I think it's partly to do, I mean, there was a report recently showing that, we lag behind in terms of entrepreneurial spirit. That was the small business report that came out a few weeks ago. And I think historically that's been true, but Invest and I are providing certain levers, the incubators, the Propel program, and I'm currently on the accelerator, on the Ignite Accelerator based in Belfast. They certainly help, and I think that they generate a lot of interest, from other entrepreneurs. I think the universities are certainly engaging more support. I think that having Hinari in place, with Joanne now taking over from Rob Grundy, that's certainly a lever also. And I think what you're seeing really is the marriage of tech. We've got a brilliant reputation here in terms of what we're doing, in terms of software. I think that's really driving a lot of this digital and data approach to health innovation. I think that's probably, I'm still quite new to this, so it may be
No, it's a good answer. And I was going to say, Deva, you come from the academic. I'm gonna say Queen's, and it could be you, and then I'm gonna kick myself. So you tell me which one.
Queen's, it's Queen's. Austria, got it right. Yeah.
No, happy days. They're both just as valuable as each other, aren't they? In terms of obviously the academic ideas that come through, and then, like Susan mentioned, mirroring that with the technology and the experts within that space as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Susan, Austria, because we do have the space, and particularly so for me, closer to home base, Queens, the thing about universities, particularly in health tech, I think, is that you're at the right place. You have access to data, particularly if you're coming from academia. That means you already have the right connections. You already know which clinicians to talk to. You already have access to biobanks, the connections there. And these things are really helpful, particularly for a startup who's just finding their way around, and also universities tend to have a bit more direct access to, investors, making that portfolio for you. And then now, particularly within Queen's, we have Cubis, so the commercialization branch, who with us personally, they helped us a lot, from everything from dealing with legals to, and then, finding the resources. Where are we going to keep the software engineers? Where are they going to work? Because these are problems that you have at the beginning. Because as an academic, I had no idea, what are you supposed to do? How do you begin a startup? All of a sudden, it's very different to doing just research. And someone who's currently doing both of these things, the commercial side and the research side, it's still two very different worlds. And I think it's very helpful when you have that incubator, essentially, who's going to help you, develop your skills and get you to that point where you can do things by yourself. And yeah, so I think that's why the fact that we have these, these two big universities that's actually helping healthcare startups, be prominent in Northern Ireland. I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then guys, I'm going to give two of you the opportunity, and then I have to move on to, unfortunately, the next part of today. But whoever jumps forward first, happy days, you've got the floor. I want to ask this. I love Derry. I love where I live, but there is still so much more that needs to be done in terms of obviously the support that's given to those from a community level up in terms of how they access that health, whether it's mental health, whether it's well-being, whether it's all the things that they need to feel better about themselves. So my question to you is, the pandemic has helped in removing some of the barriers, and we've got this technology. Where do you see a city like Derry in 10 years' time in terms of obviously using technology to access basic healthcare? What kind of innovation can you see jumping forward in 10 years from now that's going to help with that fairness and that process for all?
So is your question, Alistair, with regards everyone having access to technology? Is that what you're kind of,
yeah,
from a maybe
so,
social,
totally.
socio-economic disadvantage?
Like, okay, from a pure basic, let's say, obviously 2 issues that we face in this city here would be mental health, and there is quite a lot of alcohol addiction. How can we solve those problems through 10 years, through technology, and in 10 years be in a better place? What can you see happening within the space that's going to help?
Well, I see massive movements moving forward with regard to psychological well-being here. Even in the research we've done in-house, and plus the research that Queen's have just done for us with regards an independent evaluation study report, we're finding that the generation here want to talk. We have change makers. We have 16 plus coming on, and we are talking about grief. We're talking about sexual abuse, very clinically governed, of course. We're talking about alcohol issues. And again, I have mentioned, we have researched and spoken to young people, adults, professionals, and educational establishments, organisations, social and health, to find out what are the topics of concern and interest to our generation here that we're looking at 16 plus. And what we're finding is people are coming forward, as I said, telling their lived and learned. We're matching that with professionals, and we've actually partnered with the charities across Northern Ireland as well. So what we've done is we've offered that awareness, that initial, what's going on for me is actually going on for someone else. I'm okay, whether it's sexuality, transgender, drugs, exam pressure. So what we're doing is just talking about this, number 1, to raise awareness, but number 2, of course, to reduce the stigma. It's going to be okay if you're having, conflicting thoughts about yourself. We all do, but do we say it? So now we're trying to use the compassion to talk about it. So I think there is a movement towards breaking down the stigma. There is a movement towards more self-awareness, and we are doing that within the app, and we are doing it in every single person on the panel today. And do you know what it is? That repetition of, we should talk about it, we can talk about it, and we know then where to get help. That's going to start to slowly chip away at what hasn't been working already in Northern Ireland. So I am very positive about the future, but we needed to start somewhere. And I think now, with everyone coming together with mental health at the forefront, let's be honest, and we do take health, physical health and mental health, they're starting to be seen a little more on par now, but we are moving towards that. So I do think that the businesses, the organisations and statutory sectors are very much, everyone's saying the same message, and you could get the messages in school with regards to mental health and breathing techniques. You might not even know that you're becoming more self-aware with regard to your own mood and mental health. Yeah. That's the start of it. Primary schools, secondary schools, we're seeing it now in males, we're seeing it with women, even regards to postnatal depression. We're starting to talk about these things. The farming industry, Diva, the interest there is just huge. We've got urban children, adults, all sorts coming forward. We've got rural people coming forward to say, I'm ready to talk. And I think that's just really, really powerful for the planning for our future. And we're starting now, which is great.
Okay, great stuff. And final words from one person on the panel, then we're going to move on to the next section for today. So final word from anyone on the panel, obviously with their vision for 10 years.
Yeah, I'll take that if you don't mind. Wouldn't it be great if our city was fully connected. And what I mean by that is all of the amazing services that we have throughout the city that have been here for decades, and a lot of new services as well, if they were all connected to each other and being able to collaborate better. I'll give you a really good example. Actually, Northwest Regional College is a partner of ours, and they partnered with us through the pandemic. Actually, they are really leading the way in terms of student support services, and connecting their students, not just with financial issues and study issues, for example, the traditional things that you would have seen, or certainly I saw when I was in university. But they're looking beyond that. They're looking at the wider picture of mental health related issues, loneliness, COVID-19 support, the real broad list of issues that our youth today are experiencing. So through our technology and through our partnership, they're dealing with the issues that they can within the college, but where they can't, they're actually referring their students on their students' behalf to these other amazing organizations in our city. And I think it would be fantastic if we had all of our schools and universities doing the same thing, and helping our students and our youth make that step rather than expecting them to go and make that step themselves.
Can I jump in?
Brilliant.
Now, there's a 2 seconds.
You've got 15 seconds because I've got someone waiting to pitch. So go for it, Susan.
We're in a brilliant position with the city deal coming in and the new medical school. But what we need to do is really plug everybody in together. We've got all of these great agencies, but it's still a little bit fragmented. Pull it all together and improve health literacy. You know, we owe it to give back to people. During the pandemic, everybody's become much more digitally literate. So let's try and capitalize on that and not let it escape.
Brilliant final suggestion. Chris, Susan, Sinead, and Deva, it's been great to have you with us today. Thank you ever so much for your time. I hope that we can follow up on this chat perhaps 12 to 18 months from now and see where we're at on that journey. And hopefully we're post-pandemic full stop by then. And obviously we'll be back to real life a little bit as well. So guys, thanks for your time today. I'll see you soon. Right, guys. This is the first of 3 sessions today. We're on till 4 o'clock this afternoon. The next section of this health and wellness session is we have 2 more early stage startups from Northern Ireland who will be pitching for the LEVELUP startup pitch competition. So this is a great opportunity for early stage startups to pitch. There's a 2K prize. Real-time recruitment are putting the cash in, obviously there alongside couple of other co-sponsors, but Real Time are the main sponsor of this one. And we've got 12 startups pitching over the 2 days. 3:40 this afternoon, if you can join us. There's a separate link for that. It's on startacus.eventbrite.com. Come and find out who the winner is. Just a quick thanks to the judges that are watching the pitches. We've got Beth from Ada Ventures, Audrey TechStart, Nico from Ascension Ventures, Mary McKenna, who's a local Star Angel investor, you might know her, Dave Graham from Dell, and Naomi from Tech North Advocates. Thank you ever so much for your time. So first up, we have Mind Mapper, and that's Mind Mapper and Naomi and Tara.
So next up, we have Tara and Naomi from Mind Mapper. Mind Mapper is a Fitbit solution for mental health tracking within the field of talk-based therapies. The Mind Mapper neuroimaging device and software empowers therapists with no neuroimaging expertise to gain access for the first time in traditional talk-based therapies to quantitative evidence of physical improvements in brain activity for clients dealing with anxiety and depression. So over to you guys to let us all know about Mind Mapper.
Thank you, Colin. I'll just start off now, if that's okay. So did you know that 120,000 people in Northern Ireland alone have been waiting for more than 1 year to access mental health services? Given that poor mental health is the #1 cause of illness and disability in Northern Ireland, this is a truly shocking figure. For a second, consider the scale of the problem globally too. Here we have Sarah, a typical talk-based therapist. Therapists like Sarah assess their clients' progress relying on their own observations of their clients' self-reporting of their own current mental health state based on a scaling of 1 to 10. But this rating will vary from person to person, as one person's 6 will be another person's 4, leading therapists like Sarah asking questions such as, how can I objectively validate the positive improvements in physical brain activity my clients experience as a result of therapy?
Introducing MyMapper, an innovative Fitbit-type tech solution to this problem that will provide objective and quantitative measures of progress using algorithms to track changes in brain activity over the course of a therapy intervention. On the left of this slide is a model of the Flex EEG cap developed by Neuroconcise Limited. Neuroconcise has agreed to provide their services to develop the MyMapper headset and software based on the framework of the Flex EEG. We've recently been awarded a 10,000 proof of concept grant through our participation in the Catalyst Inc. co-founders program, and this will go towards our next steps. Firstly, to create a formal legal agreement with our software developer Neuroconcise to clearly define and secure MyMapper's IP. Neuroconcise will bring background IP to the development of MyMapper POC and MVP in the form of a software framework that interfaces with the headset to read the recorded data. The foreground IP will be a licensed bespoke software package owned by MyMapper, and the MyMapper headset also with its own sensor configuration. So this funding will go further towards the research and development phase, which will develop the MyMapper analysis algorithms.
So our team currently has 2 members, myself and Naomi Dubois. As a qualified hypnotherapist and psychotherapist with 20 years experience in financial analysis and project delivery, I bring to the team the advantage of having direct customer insights to the problem MyMapper is addressing. My co-founder Naomi is a research associate at the Intelligent Systems Research Centre at Ulster University, and Naomi's qualifications and expertise lie within neuroimaging and psychology. Together, we have the skills and insight necessary for the development of our solution to the market opportunity we've identified. And the worldwide market for neurotechnology products is predicted to reach 13.3 billion in 2022. MyMapper's long-term strategy is to be a key player in this market, targeting the UK and Republic of Ireland markets with medium to long-term goals in exporting to Europe and the United States.
Here we have the timeline for the project plan for the next 3 years. Sorry. Oh yeah. For the next 3 years. Research and design phase will be covered in year 1, helped by our recent POC award, followed by clinical trials in year 2, supported through our participation in the Interreg IT for Anxiety project, and finalizing the commercialization steps in year 3.
And these are our next steps. The scalability of MyMapper is fast, and future trials will include other therapies and multiple disorders, so the future is bright. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you very much. If you guys can stop screen sharing, and I'll open the floor to our judges.
Thank you. 1 second. I can make this bigger. Colin, can we ask questions now, or are we waiting for the slides to go?
Yes, there you go. Question,
Right,
Naomi,
okay.
jump the gun. Away you go.
Just a quick question about, I'm just a bit confused about who your customers are.
Mm-hmm. Our customers are talk-based therapists, Naomi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, ranging from cognitive behavioral therapists, hypnotherapists, you know, all the traditional talk-based therapists. And being a therapist myself, you know, I have direct insights to that, which helped in our market validation, where we spoke directly to therapists and asked them their opinion on what they thought of the headset, you know, whilst we were in the...
So would they buy the headset and then they'd obviously put that within their pricing model, wouldn't they?
Yes, we had spoken with therapists and give them an indication of the price for the headset, which we are estimating at £3,000 for the moment. And they were completely, they were impressed. They thought to have access to such data would cost a lot more. So they were happy with the price point, and they really took on board. They enjoyed, you know, the benefits that it could bring in terms of, you know, motivating their clients to use as a marketing tool to promote, you know, the effectiveness of their therapy.
So only one client at a time would use that though?
one client at a time, but they will be able to use that over the course of the client's therapy. But what the headset can be used for all their clients.
How?
Well, Naomi will explain that a wee bit better, but it's very easily cleaned between sessions. But Naomi is the expert in the headsets, will explain that to you.
I thought you said I was going to explain it because my name's Naomi.
Oh, sorry.
In the flex, if you can take your mind back to the Flex EEG that I showed you, it's like a baseball cap. And that has sensors that are, so the sensors are in a cap that baseball cap kind of goes over. So not that ours is necessarily going to be that same design, that's the NeuroConcise Flex EEG, but something similar. So it'll be an EEG based cap basically. So it goes on and comes off. It's wireless, completely easy to set up. We've trialed this in trials in looking at PTSD in Rwanda. It's super easy to just set up and operate from just any tablet device. So once we would have the software, it's the algorithms that are that's what would be Mind Mapper essentially, are the algorithms that will be used to measure measures of improvement in networks that maintain mental health disorders in the brain. So there are 3 main networks that maintain mental health illness, and looking at functional connectivity within those networks, that's usually how therapies like cognitive behavior therapy is a big one that has a very large evidence base at the moment. And that's what they would do. They would use these EEG caps or MEG. During their session? Well, yes, during the session, it's very, like I say, it takes a few minutes to set up. So the client puts the cap on and the therapist accesses their profile on their tablet device and they set it to record data, just some resting state data. That's all that's needed. The client just sits there for 5 minutes and that's it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I thought they were going to take it home and I was like, that's just not going to work.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So last question to Audrey.
Thank you. So you covered part of my first bit of question, Naomi, was the upfront cost and the training that the therapists need. But how are the algorithms going to work if you're talking about that they could use different types of hats and not just be tied to the neuroconcise ones? Because from my understanding that the algorithms will be tied to specifically where the different pinpoints are. So if you use a different headset, the pinpoints won't be in the exact same place. So how will your algorithms cope with that?
So our algorithms are going to, the whole development will include configurations for where these sensors need to be placed. And we will be developing it alongside our own headset. But the plan is that eventually down the line, we'll have a standalone software package that can be used with any headset as long as the headset has sensors in those sensor locations.
And how frequent do you actually have to use this to actually get a consistent reading across a person to be able to make some informed decisions?
So you need it's estimated, again, we have to test, but it's estimated 5 minutes resting state. Then you would use the cap over sessions. So probably you would need at least 3 sessions to be able to see if there's any difference. And then, but what the algorithms will do is they will graph the values in some meaningful way so that it can show improvements in these networks over the sessions. So supposing usually it would be 6 sessions at least, isn't it, Tara? So you'd have like an initial 6 sessions, then most therapies then would evaluate how the client was doing and decide whether they continue. But you should be able to see changes. Well, you will be able to see changes over 6 sessions.
Great stuff. Well done, Tara and Naomi. Tara and Naomi are also on our Impacting Founders Female Founder Program that we've been running. So it's great to have them pitching. Next up is Naomi with Move True.
So Move True revolutionizes the health and fitness industry through advanced wearable technologies. Their multi-award winning product offers a specialist algorithm to reduce rehabilitation time in real time. So Naomi, over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. At 14 years old, I injured myself in ballet. It took 3 years and 8 different specialists to finally diagnose the issue. And at this time, I was told I would never be able to dance again. Unfortunately, my story is not unique. And 30% of the world's population suffer from musculoskeletal disorders. That results in costing NHS England £5 billion per year. Move True reduces rehabilitation time by 27%, thereby eliminating this issue and revolutionizing the health and fitness industry. This is done through wearable technology that allows the user to take control of their rehabilitation from home. Our team is dynamic and involves engineers, software developers, legal, corporate business strategists, and medical. We have also gained amazing collaborative partners, including Yale Design, Ulster University, and Queen's University. Our mission is to eradicate preventable injury. To date, we have been able to create real-time 3D motion capture and raised over £75,000 in non-equity funding. And this has been in less than 12 months. We have been able to be supported from a range of mentors, grants, and competitions, and we're winners for Queen's Dragon's Den, Catalyst Enterprise Software Award winner, and selected by the Santander Universities for Queen's University's representative. We are initially targeting the sports industry, which is worth £500 billion per year. Specifically, the sports medicine industry, worth $7.3 billion. And this will be able to be produced through reducing the injury-related decrement in performance within sports players, which has enormous costs on sports teams every year. Within the Premier League, it costs $45 million per team. And within Major League Baseball, it's £342 million per team per year. We've ensured that customers' ideas are involved in our product at every stage of development through carrying out over 80 customer discovery interviews, including coaches, physiotherapists, and athletes, having their needs involved. And we are currently endorsed by Deborah Wingert, Juilliard and Harvard professor within ballet. Move True is unique to the market and requires zero training, has quick setup, and offers instant advice to the user.
30 seconds.
We're the latest breakthrough in sports technology. Going ahead, we are excited to be representing Queen's University in the Santander University competition, submitting our patent within the next few months, and we hope to be raising our first investment round this summer, ahead of our product launch at the end of 2022. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and I really appreciate any questions.
Great, thank you, Naomi. Thank you very much. So if you can stop screen sharing, and then let's open the floor to our judges.
So Naomi, thanks a lot for the presentation. I was wondering if you could walk through how exactly Move True, how the product reduces the rehabilitation time exactly and improves like the efficiency, and what it looks like for an athlete who's using it. Like, are they using it every day when they're working out and such? Yeah.
So with the user, they'll be having a Lycra style clothing, which is quite just common sports clothing, and then their information will be seen on their app and also to any relevant stakeholders, including the coaches and physiotherapists. And then from that, it's highlighting their full body motion. So it's being able to analyze dynamic motion, which is something that we currently cannot do. Whenever we have physiotherapy sessions, it has to be through static motion and through quite traditional products. So whenever we actually are able to do this, this is been allowing you to have numerical analysis to their body. And then this is done by giving you the feedback of your flexibility and mobility within your joints, and then can highlight quite other important sports parameters such as your power and the way you exert so much strength in your body. And then from that, it allows you to be able to see how to improve these and prevent injury in real time. So it can highlight if you are exceeding your flexibility limits, if you're training too hard too quickly, and a range of different other areas that way. And that's through analysing it against industry standards and also developing of machine learning.
Great, thanks.
With that answer, could it also be used for training as well as rehabilitation?
Yeah, so rehabilitation is just the focus for our initial entry, and then what we're actually looking is that it would be preventative, so you can actually have pre-injury, because some injuries will never be preventable, especially in elite sports, but you'll have pre and post-injury analysis to make sure that that user is fully ready to go back into their sport before they return to play, which is quite a high issue at the minute, especially within sports teams, to make sure, how do you know your player is ready to go back to the field? And if they go back too soon, then it becomes a massive injury risk for reoccurrence.
We have time for one last question if anyone has a final question. No? Perfect. Naomi answered everyone's questions. Thank you very much.
Wow, guys, 2 pitches, 2 panels, 2 hours. I think we've done a pretty good health and wellness session. So I'm going to end on that note and say thank you to the judges. Thanks to all the panelists. Literally 1 minute, we'll be back here for social purpose. And that's a 2-hour section there as well. So stay on the Zoom if you want. You can just continue through and we'll see you back here in 1 minute. Thank you.